I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Sandy Greenberg.
The more mediums that come along, the more ways to talk to people, the more you realize what we're looking for, no matter what, is what's the strategy and what's the idea that's then going to be amplified in every channel. Also, we can think simply. Simplicity is one of the key things to building a great brand, and I think most of the great brands, they're very, very clear and simple in who they are.
After rising through the ranks at DMB&B, JWT, and FCB, Sandy Greenberg founded Terry and Sandy in 2010 with her long-term creative partner, Terry Meyer, with diversity and independence in its DNA. Named Ad Age's best small agency in North America and ranked the Effie's #1 most effective independent agency in the U.S., Terry and Sandy services an impressive client roster that includes iconic brands such as the Walt Disney Company, Freshpet, Nutella, and BJ's Wholesale Club. Sandy has been the creative firepower behind some of the most notable campaigns for brands like Oreo, Peeps, Planters, Disney, and Gerber. My interview with Sandy Greenberg is coming right up. But first...
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big MQL man. Then he just kept saying things like, the more MQLs, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means marketing qualified lead. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the MQL man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? John Cass hosts a great podcast called Deep Dive into Agile Marketing. John, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
The Deep Dive into Agile Marketing is an exploration of how marketers use Agile Marketing at brands in North America and beyond. I interview marketers at brands and explore how those companies use Agile Marketing. Agile Marketing is the use of Agile methods for managing the marketing process.
Interesting. Where can people subscribe?
Find the show at marketingpodcast.net or search for Deep Dive into Agile Marketing wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard him. Go subscribe.
Sandy Greenberg, welcome to On Brand.
Nick, thank you so much for having me. I must say, you have the best voice. I don't think I'm going to live up to your wonderful newscaster quality voice.
Oh, come on. You got this. Besides, I'm available. You can rent me out for events. I'm like a karaoke machine. I'll just read your bio for introduction wherever it is that you have to go.
You'll just follow me around all day, huh?
Exactly. Won't be weird at all to have someone providing a broadcast quality introduction for you as you enter the room.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
So one thing I want to talk about going out of the gate is I think that it's so refreshing to find an agency name that's just the people's names. That's not, some, I feel like we really feel the need to swing for the fences with agency names and, find some sort of non sequitur to prove our creativity. And I love that. I love that you're just Terry and Sandy. What led you to that stroke of simplicity?
Nick, do you know what's weird? You were the first person to ever ask me that. And it's such a key piece of our start. What's interesting is that when Terry and I decided to found an agency, we're a creative team. And at first, our thoughts are we needed something sort of a little more serious to sort of make clients feel secure, that there would be, let's say, organization and functionality and all kinds of things in our name. So we started with sort of like proof, like things that like the name was proof. It was something that was like, we're going to be effective, so our name will be proof. And then we tried, after we did that, we tried all the, typical names, prune and lemon and all the kinds of things that you see in companies. But what was weird is we had a client at the time whose name is Diane Jacobs, and she's hired us when she's been at multiple companies. She's come back and forth. And so when we decided to start a company, we started bouncing it off some of our clients. And every time we took sort of either a serious or a funky name in, she just kept saying, but you're Terry and Sandy. You're Terry and Sandy. And I said, Diane, you're not being helpful. That's not helpful. I understand that we're Terry and Sandy, but that can't be our name. Well, you know what? We started with the Terry and Sandy solution because the solution was meant to give the seriousness. And then we just became Terry and Sandy, and everybody started calling us Terry and Sandy, and we dumped the solution. And so, now we say we love our name because it's meant to be an antidote to the gigantic holding company names like Interpublic and Publicis and Omnicom, right? Those are company names that nobody's met the people, nobody knows who they are. They sort of sound bureaucratic. And we sort of said we want to promise that you get leadership, the leaders in your business, and you know them by a first name. And so, you know what? We evolved into our name, and now it's come to the point where it's so obviously the perfect name. But I will tell you, when we first started thinking about it, it didn't feel that way.
Well, I think that what you said in there, that's a key insight that many would skip over, is they forget the importance of considering how your clients talk about you, how your customer, the words that they use, and get me Terry and Sandy,
right,
versus something else.
That's exactly right. So thank you for noticing that.
Well, it's funny because the kind of opposite of that is every time I have an agency on with an incredibly abstract name, I have to say, okay, what does this mean and why?
Right. And then, obviously we've got all the common last names, right?
Yeah.
Which can sound like a law firm. But yeah, I'm really happy with our name.
So you talked a bit about this in I mean, we'll get beyond naming, but just in the naming differences between some of the bigger players. What, with your career working for those bigger players and then shifting gears and building an independent agency, what were some of the biggest challenges that you ran into along the way as you began that journey?
Well, I think so. Terry and I spent, over 30 years in the big agency world. We started at Darcy Macias Benton and Bowles, which is no longer here. We went to J. Walter Thompson, which is no longer here. And then we were at FCB for 15 years before we started our own company. And, what's interesting is when you're at a big agency, right, you have all these departments that each have their own incredibly clear responsibilities. And, you sort of don't go out of your lane. I'm a creative person. I do creative. You are a research person. You do research. When you go to an indie, smaller agency like ours, you have to really learn, and especially to start it, right? You have to learn everything. When we first got into business, Terry and I were creative people. And our clients, of course, they say, would you send us a scope of work? Now, while that sounds like the most basic thing to many people, to Terry and me, we had never written a scope of work. We didn't know what went into a scope of work. We had to call our friends and say, hey, could you send us your scope of work? And how do you do that? And then, like conference reports, a very basic thing. When we were in the big agency world, conference reports would be put on our chair. We'd, look through them and then send them back. in our own agency, we had to write, someone had to write, it wasn't going to be us, but somebody had to write conference reports, and we had to learn what made a good conference report. Very basic things. But I think what I'm saying is, number one, there's no lanes, right? If you own your own small agency, you're doing everything from meeting with CEOs to taking out the garbage and everything in between. So I think that when you go to a smaller agency, you have to be willing to be, you have to be wanting to, not willing to, wanting to, one, call your own shots, two, be more entrepreneurial, three, stretch up and stretch down. When young people come to our company and we say, you're going to be in the room with CEOs, which is something you might not be doing at a big agency for 10 years. But at our agency, day two, you might be in a meeting with the CEO. But keep in mind, you also better be willing to do the small stuff. If we need a cup of coffee, get it, because the bottom line is that you have to be willing. And the bigger you get, the more you're going to end up in these more like silos. But we don't really have any silos at Terry and Sandy.
So, say more about. I love the idea of coming up through this creative career, and having the rest of the agency business to contend with. Were there areas where that your background as a creative gave you unique insight into running an agency?
That's really interesting. In the end, Terry and I are business people. Not business people in maybe the typical way that you look at it, which is finance, the numbers, things like that. That we weren't as close to at our old agency, but we were business people in this way, which is that we're relationship people. And we became, very linked to our clients in terms of strategy and their brand and their success. So clients began to think of us as part of their business. So while we are creative people, I think that strength of coming up with the ideas that helped transform their business, fuel their business, gave us the insight of what we really are as business builders. And that's what we're going to take to our own company. And our strength is creative. And I think, what's really interesting, when we started, I was a little worried, so was Terry, that being creative, that clients might fear. So there's very few agencies that are owned by only creative people. You might see a creative person, an account person, or a creative person and a strategist, or 3 people or 5 people. You almost never. I would have trouble coming up with one. Another agency, started by a writer and art director partner. And at first, we had some concerns that clients might find that a weakness and really be concerned about our strategy and be concerned about our account service. But that hasn't happened. And I think we have worked extra hard to make sure that we bring in really strong account people, and our head of strategy is the absolute best. So that might be why it comes up, but it probably also doesn't come up because we're business people and we're thinking of their brand and their strategy and how to market it and how to sell it in the smartest way. And so that's what clients want. They don't care as much of what department you're in if you can think about how to transform their business.
So, for the aforementioned creative power that you and Terry bring to bear, how do you see that? I mean, it's a challenging media landscape today for us to interject creativity. So, are there secrets that you follow with regard to how to make sense of it all today?
I think that, as you were just saying, that the landscape has become a lot more, and the media landscape has become a lot more fragmented than, say, when I entered the business 40 years ago. When I came into the business, when you were the agency, you were the TV agency, you did TV, print, outdoor, and maybe an event or something. But today, the key word is omni-channel, right? It even sounds complex. And there are just so many more ways today that we interact with a brand. And so I think it becomes fragmented. So I think, I guess the way that I think that creativity helps Terry and me sort of keep up in this world is no matter what, it's the idea that sits above all of it that needs to be able to travel into each and every medium. So, and we've been trained now to do it, right? At first, maybe we were traditional creatives, but the more mediums that come along, the more ways to talk to people, the more you realize what we're looking for, no matter what, is what's the strategy and what's the idea that's then going to be amplified in every channel. And we can think that way. And I think also we can try to think simply. I do think that simplicity is one of the key things to building a great brand. And I think most of the great brands that we all admire, they're very, very clear and simple in who they are. And I think Terry and our creativity trains us to think simply and to think, okay, what's the idea though? What's the idea that's going to go into everything? And that's what I think our creativity has sort of inspired in us.
On Brand will be right back after this.
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big MQL man. Then he just kept saying things like, the more MQLs, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means marketing qualified lead. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the MQL man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? John Cass hosts a great podcast called Deep Dive into Agile Marketing. John, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
The Deep Dive into Agile Marketing is an exploration of how marketers use Agile marketing at brands in North America and beyond. I interview marketers at brands and explore how those companies use Agile marketing. Agile marketing is the use of Agile methods for managing the marketing process.
Interesting. Where can people subscribe?
Find the show at marketingpodcast.net or search for Deep Dive into Agile Marketing wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard him. Go subscribe.
Now, back to the show. So, why do you think you mentioned the importance of simplicity and how it's often present with great brands, but it is something that can be elusive. It doesn't feel like the right move. It can feel like less. Why is simplicity so hard, and how can we endow our brands that we're working on with greater simplicity?
Yeah, that's a huge question. Well, first,
a couple of them.
right? Oh my God. Well, so simplicity is, you have to be smarter to be simple, right? It's an art to take things away, because most people tend to want to add things, especially, on the client and marketing side. I think clients know that simplicity is better, but when the moment comes to pick what you want to say, it's very, very hard for clients to say, okay, we won't, be willing to put some stuff on the side in the interest of simplicity. So they'll think, let's say you have 30 seconds. Let's talk for 30 seconds because we have 30 seconds. So let's just talk about ourselves. But that's not going to help anyone remember anything, right? Someone's going to hear a bunch of stuff and then walk away and not take anything with them. I'm a huge fan of saying, I'm the writer, by the way, and I always want to get rid of words. I want to strip things away. Tony Scopolito, who's our managing director, he always says, that BB King was always asked sort of how is he such a genius? Why does his guitar playing sound different from everyone else's? And he said, it's not just the notes you play, it's the notes you don't play. And I think that tells you everything. And I think it's very, very hard for people in marketing and in the world to really get down to focusing on the one most important thing to say and put the others aside. Simplicity is an art.
Absolutely. And I love the references to both the writing side of things and music, because it's really addition by subtraction. But
Yeah, that's exactly right.
but as you know, that's easier said than done, and but yet it's present. And those brands that do embrace simplicity really have a brand story that is a North Star that's easy to connect with and follow as well.
Yeah, North Star, very cohesive, right?
Yeah. So, in your work, as we look at the challenges of today's landscape that isn't showing any signs of slowing down, what
Nick,
do you find most
Nick,
clients?
I'm
What?
sorry, but you just cut out for about 20 seconds.
Uh-oh. Well, I'm sorry about that. I will try that question again.
Okay.
So, in your work and with the challenges present today, what are you hearing from clients that they are most concerned about? Is it the changing media landscape? Is it the business environment? What is challenging the marketers that you're running into?
Well, I mean, there's big, lofty things, but the bottom line is business results, right?
Hmm.
Business results. It's like, what are the numbers? And the fact that clients don't have time to um, to make numbers. It's all a short-term game, right? It's like really fast, really like it's all about the numbers. It's how fast you get your business doing well and what numbers you're making. That is defining our clients, and the pressure to succeed very, very quickly and impact the bottom line right away is the most concerning. Other things, I think, come and go, right? So, like that thing right there, that's the bottom line, and it's probably always been true. Is it more true today? I feel it. I feel, due to all the layoffs, all the restructures, all the pressure, the economy. Um, it's the pressure to make your numbers is the greatest success. Then you just have trendy stuff that concerns people. For years you had, before anyone understood digital, how to succeed in digital and how to succeed in social. And, now you've got AI and all those temporary things. But the bottom line that every client is obsessed with is, what are you going to do to make an impact on my business so that I succeed and get promoted and not fired?
That is again, it tracks with certainly what I'm hearing out there, and it's those kind of environmental challenges of kind of the economy, the point in time that we're in right now. That's an inflection point of so many different things. Also,
Yeah, Nick, let me throw out another one. Another topic that tends to baffle, I think, folks on the marketing side and the agency side is the amount of agency relationships they have to manage. I think that when I think about what might be the greatest change in our industry, since I started. It's the fact that when I was coming up in the business, clients had an agency relationship, maybe two, right? Maybe they had a promotion agency, or maybe they had a packaging agency, but they had a couple, but they had their agency, their main AOR, and a lot of times those relationships lasted for years, and they were very trusting of their agencies, knew their business inside and out. They had people that often stayed on it for a long time, that they felt, understood their business. And those relationships developed right into other things like socializing, getting together, golf, barbecues, whatever you want to call it, and there were real relationships. And I think what's happened now is that because clients now could have a general agency, they could have a digital agency, social agency, influencer agency, promotion agency, packaging agency. Well, how do they have time to have close relationships with all those people?
Right.
They don't. And so that's why relationships are more transient. That's why there's more project-based relationships, because people don't really own a brand the way they used to. There are certainly examples where we do own brands. You can name agencies that have had longstanding relationships with brands. And, at our place, we've had Freshpet for 13 years. So that is a very close, longstanding, true partnership. But I think the way the media landscape has become so fragmented has led to all these fragmented agency relationships that I think it's very hard for clients to manage. It's very hard for clients to know who they can trust, because there's just so many people coming and going. And it's very hard, by the way. I don't think almost anyone has truly nailed the whole integrated agency relationship management thing. I think, holding companies, they'll name a group that's responsible for this or whatever, but it's very hard for agencies to play nice, even though clients expect you to all like each other and all respect each other and all get along and have no territorial tendencies, and yet everybody is competing for the same money. So it's just, I think that piece of the business to me is one of the most challenging.
Yeah, that is, again, some of the hardest things impossible things to scale. Time and human relationships, which require time as well.
Yeah.
So, well, Sandy, you, from your agency name to your outlook, have made me smile many times here on the show. And now it is my turn to get to ask you for a brand that has made you smile recently.
I'm going to give you one that I wouldn't have expected. I smiled when I saw that Special K put a pregnant woman on its box. They featured this cookbook author, Molly Baz. And I just thought, wow, you don't see bold packaging like that. So that really made me smile.
No, I love that. I saw that too, and that is a great answer and a great smile. Sandy, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
They can go to terrysandy.com. So that's TERISANDY.com, or they can go find me on LinkedIn.
All righty. Well, we will link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can always find at onbrandpodcast.com. Sandy Greenberg, thanks for being on brand with us.
Nick, thank you so much for having me.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? John Cass hosts a great podcast called Deep Dive into Agile Marketing. John, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
The Deep Dive into Agile Marketing is an exploration of how marketers use Agile marketing at brands in North America and beyond. I interview marketers at brands and explore how those companies use Agile marketing. Agile marketing is the use of Agile methods for managing the marketing process.
Interesting. Where can people subscribe?
Find the show at marketingpodcast.net or search for Deep Dive into Agile Marketing wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard him. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.